All right, everybody, welcome to episode 9 of our quarantine film study. We're finally into the offensive line position, the thing that makes that whole offensive machine go, and couldn't be more excited to bring you someone that just blows me away every time we get a chance to talk the game in terms of what he's come to do professionally, but more about what he does to teach other people the game, and that is Duke Manyweather, now of O-Line Masterminds. Built this whole part of this industry for himself in terms of helping players prepare for games, helping players prepare for the draft, helping players prepare in season. Does so much in that community. Correct me if I'm wrong, also working with the Joe Moore Award in terms of evaluating the college offensive linemen.
Correct.
So really, really excited. So I threw at you when we went into picking out film, something you wanted to look at, and you hit me with the idea of watching pass sets against a 2-eye. Just, real quick, what brought you to that is the thing you wanted to study?
Yeah, you know what? Pass sets from a 2-eye and even run blocking from a 2-eye tends to create a level of difficulty at all levels of offensive line play, no matter you're talking about the high school level, the college level, or the professional level. It's not something that teams play all the time, but what ends up happening is it almost changes your footwork and all your principles of fundamentals from offensive linemen. And so when you get a dynamic player over you that can really go from a 2-eye, it really challenges and puts strain on the offensive lineman to be able to understand how to create the space that he needs to, how his feet need to be, and even how his hands need to be, because there's so little room for error when you're setting a 2-eye or even run blocking a 2-eye and you have no help.
So what we did is we went into telemetry. We've talked about that tool with you guys before. Telemetry Sports allows us to slice and dice the film and find the things that we wanted to look for. And we have Zack Martin of the Dallas Cowboys going against Fletcher Cox, both games last year, Dallas against Philadelphia. And we found a ton of clips of Fletcher at that 2-eye against Zack in that scenario. So again, thank you to Telemetry for putting that together. And as always, I need to say thank you to the NFL for Game Pass. They made that available to all of us through May 31st for free. So please check that out. The link will be in the description. All right, my man, let's talk a little offensive line. And so for everybody watching, we've added the down and distance at the bottom because this is a cut up. So we'll have all those game situation pieces in here. And one of the things I like to do is, as we're working through this, and obviously we'll get to the end copy for the stuff that we really care about, is get a little bit from you in terms of the pre and then the post snap. So as we get into this and we watch the end copy, I'm interested in your take on an offensive lineman's thoughts when he sees the front in this scenario, any of that motion or shifts that are going to happen there defensively, and what that might do to the mindset as we watch this matchup.
Yeah, so going into the mindset, you kind of know what your protection is, for the most part, where it could be pointed. And so when you get that motion here, you start to see a little sugar at the line of scrimmage. What they're doing, they're adjusting their guy. So you see Fletcher Cox, for the sake of this film study, moved from a 2-eye, shifted to a 3. Now you got a 3, really a 3-by-1 formation. And it looks like it's to the field. So when you get that from offensive line, it really base everything upon what your protection is, where you're pointing to, who you're working to, and then you go from there. If there's a chance for pressure looks or anything like that, of course, you guys are communicating. You're up. You're looking for the safety rotation or the wheel spinning towards where the potential void could be for the pressure triangle.
So when you're looking at this and you're seeing these 5 defenders to this side of the center, that most likely where you're going to start to anticipate the pressure coming from, unless your film study tells you otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always look at, a lot of times, especially with Travis Frederick, kind of he'll point it out. And even if you listen to, I love listening to the TV broadcast, because a lot of times you can hear and they'll say, hey, 47 is the mic or 27 is the mic, wherever they're going. And so they may have 4 down to the wheel in that situation. And then that just kind of tells you exactly where they're pointing to and which way they're going to work.
All right. So we have Fletcher here in a 3 technique. And again, just be interested as we see this to hear more from you in terms of what you think about Zack's set and how this rep comes together.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off by saying that Zack is kind of a prototype in terms of all things offensive line, just from fundamentals from the ground up The stance is very consistent. His footwork is very efficient. He takes a great set to get half man, and then that hand, his inside hand, gets right up and underneath Fletcher. Fletcher creates no space there, and so Zack is able to get into his frame and really have his way with Fletcher. You see still the leverage Zack is playing with. Cox is kind of standing straight up. Zack was able to create leverage with his hands and then was able to re-leverage with his hips. And so you see great power angles there from Zack. He's going to redirect the force up from Fletcher and really ends the fight.
And this last little bit here from his left hand, when he fits it back underneath, talk to me a little bit about that, the idea of refitting your hands after contact.
Yeah, you'll notice that the guys that have success in the NFL do a couple of different things. They're kind of three-phase blockers. So that's the initial contact, and then that's the re-leverage of the contact, and that's the strain. And no matter if you're talking about pass protection or run blocking, the really good ones get through all three phases. And then that fourth phase, which is really a refit, and then be able to have your way. And you kind of see that with Zack. Even though Fletcher's into his body, he's probably getting a rip right there. He knew that if he could get his hand up and under, it really pins Fletcher's rip into the body, and now Zack has control. So it looks like what Fletcher's trying to do is try to get back around his, get back across his face, and really Zack is able to clamp now with his outside hand, and again into the fight.
And he really does, because this is a non-factor for Fletcher on this one.
Yep, absolutely. It's beautiful, man. I can watch Zack Martin and pass protection or run blocking all day long.
I'm really hoping there are some good reps from Fletcher. I'm a D-line guy, right? I would like to see some wins on my side of the line here, and we'll see how this manifests as we carry through. So this is the Week 6 game, and just to add a little bit more context, I didn't mention this before, this was a game where Zack actually was the one time he popped up on the injury report questionable with his back, which was flagged. He had an MRI during camp. Mm-hmm. And anybody that's ever dealt with a back injury, those things rarely ever go away. So from your experience working with these players, can you talk to us a bit about what it takes to play through a back injury in the NFL as an offensive lineman?
Yeah, well, let's understand that as an offensive lineman, your back and your posterior chain is highly important in terms of being able to just even get into your stance and getting out of your stance. When we talk about things like hip extension and rotation and being able to anti-rotate and all those good things, that your back, your core, and your posterior really are key, really key components of that. So for Zack, I'm sure him and the staff spent all week keeping him mobile, probably a lot of soft tissue work, keeping activated, making sure his glutes, hamstrings, and all those things were firing that way. His back was protected. And then probably it was really a lot of management throughout the week to make sure he's good to go. Because with a guy like Zack Martin, his 70% and 80% is going to be better than probably 90% of the league. But again, with a matchup like Fletcher Cox, you know that you don't have just a slouch week off, although there's no real weeks off in the NFL. But this is a heavyweight battle. So it's important when guys have back injuries or anything like that, that's really going to affect your base fundamentals. Again, we talk about base fundamentals. We're talking about that stance. Just something so simple as a back can throw all that off. And I think you've even seen that if we shift out to Tyron Smith, some of the back injuries and things that he's had where he's not been able to go and he doesn't look the same when he's playing with those things.
So just a couple things pre-snap here I want to pick your brain on again. So Zack here in this 2-point stance, talk to me a little bit about some of the differences, 2-point versus 3-point, and what people might want to be looking for when they're looking at a player coming out of one of those stances or the other in pass pro.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a huge fan of the 3-point stance, but of course I'm going to teach the 2-point stance. And really what I try to do is try to tell guys we don't want a drastic change out of our 3-point and our 2-point. The only difference really should be is your hand being down, per se, and which it allows you to see and really have vision of what's going on. Tyron Smith does a great job. If you see his 2-point almost looks like a 3-point stance. Same thing with Zack. All Zack needs to do is put his hand down, and his 3-point stance looks just like that 2-point stance. So when we look at that, when we look at the power angles, when we look at the spacing of the split of the feet, when we look at the posture, when we look at the core, when we look at the shoulder alignment, the really good ones don't really switch, the foot length and all that type of stuff of their 2-point and 3-point. So I believe that whatever you are able to do out of a 2-point stance, you should be able to mimic that right out of your 3-point and vice versa, because it should never change in terms of the angles in which you're creating in that stance. To take it a step further, if you really get proficient in understanding that the importance of having a 3-point stance and 2-point stance being similar, you don't have to change footwork. You don't have to change your set angles or anything like that. Only difference, again, is hands being up versus hand in the ground.
So one thing I've heard some people nitpick in the past, and I'm interested in your take on, is this inside arm and what people are doing with it relative to the knee. I've heard some people nitpick, well, I don't want the elbow pinned inside the knee. And I'm talking about scouts, I guess what I'm saying, mentioning that comment to you. Do you care where their inside elbow is in the stance?
I always try to coach exactly what Zack is doing. We want to try to have shoulders as square as possible. So not giving anything that's rolling the shoulder in or, opening the shoulder out. So what I try to do is I try to go fingertips right on top of the knee pads, essentially. At the very least, I may have like the top of the forearm to the wrist to that inside knee pad. But other than that, we try to make sure that we are still using our width and our size and not shrinking ourselves down when we're in that 2-point stance, so to speak. So great example is I'm going to always teach it how Zack is. All right. But I've also am okay with how Tyron is here in his 2-point.
I got you. All right. So we got, again, Fletcher's in that 3-point here. So we'll see how this rep comes.
So this is a great job. So Zack kind of feels Fletch playing outside. And so him and Lyle do a great job of setting on the same level. You see kind of a depth game here. And so now Zack is going to snap off Fletch to the outside and make him an outside player. He's ready for Graham coming back.
Well, and again, I got to imagine there's a lot of people that wouldn't have caught that and just thought it was a jump set, maybe lowered his head too far. And you're showing that this was going to be, a TE twist most likely, and they were preparing for Brandon coming back across.
Yes, it really what it is you see a good job of Lyle using that drag hand to kind of – you see how square he is right there? Drag. So now Fletch knows that he has to try to kind of work more up the field. And so Zack says, screw it. He goes, if you're going to keep going up the field, it's going to allow me to be susceptible underneath. So instead of trying to wait, he just snaps it outside.
And now Brandon coming back across had absolutely no chance.
Mm-hmm.
So in some of these early ones, again, I'm going to be stopping and asking some questions on things. I promise the audience who won't do that before every play. But again, just trying to lay some groundwork here.
Well, I'll tell you what, just the 2-eye and then shifting from 2-eye to 3, especially in this matchup with Fletch and Zack, there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of tidbits and there's a lot of nuances that people definitely should know. And I mean, because not only is this position very, intricate and nuance based, but these two players are the top of their position. So this is a really cool matchup to watch on all levels.
So one of the things I saw it in the last rep, and I'm seeing it again here, and I'm again interested in your take on it. Does anything about the spacing of the other down lineman relative to Fletcher here do anything for you if you're the offensive lineman and expectations?
Because
you saw the twist game the last step. Is that one of those things you're looking for in film study?
So even on film, sometimes it's hard to see this. It's more of a game because there is another view that teams get, which is the high cam. And so you can kind of see it a little better from that. The actual alignment versus where his normal 3 is versus where his 3 would be if he's going to run some type of game or try to isolate. So I'm sure these guys are very familiar with each other. He probably knows when Fletch is playing more tip to tip and cocked a little bit and in a certain stance that he's going to run some type of game. And so he's able to tell Lyle or whoever he's working with, hey, eyes up or watch it or jump, whatever their call is going to be. To kind of watch the game and the funky stuff. But, of course, one of the things that I do in advanced scouting reports for guys I'm working with is I try to give them funky looks in terms of when alignments are different. That way it alerts them, or stance are different. Or, if these guys are normally in a cock jet tech stance, then all of a sudden they're balanced, what may be coming. So I try to give, based upon the player that they're playing against, some keys to really pay attention to if they're going to be on the move or not.
So Zack's back in the 3-point here. They've got, looks like 12 personnel with a tight wide receiver here, which brought all these Philly guys into the box. Let's see how this 2nd and 1 play looks.
They go a little naked action.
And what is the aiming point for him here when you're going to wash everybody like this?
Well, for Zack per se right here, what they call like pigs on parade or bulls on parade or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, we call it elephants on parade. Yeah, right. I'm with you.
Same thing. A lot of times they're telling the guys to take your first initial step as if you're running like your outside or your wide zone, and anything that comes into you, collision it and shove it back away from where the roll is going to be. So you'll see Zack here is not really finding anything in the second, third step. If this nose tackle that's playing over Trav tried to work back over the top, of course he would be there to collect him. And you'll see here on the backside of where Lyell and I believe that could be Witten and Jarwin, they're going to try to collision everything in, but understand those tight ends are playing right back out into the route.
One of those intricacies of the different pass protections, obviously, teams will use.
Oh, man, I love play action. I love the naked looks. I love the naked boot looks. NFL uses so here's another thing. I'm not going to go on a tangent about this, but colleges use this a lot as part of their pass protection. And probably the last 3 or 4 years, NFL uses it a ton. And so I don't understand why some people try to take shots at some of these offensive linemen or even all these other positions really that play in a naked look or scheme that really is play action pass. That really where the game is now. You're going to see heavy doses of it in the NFL as well.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the NFL games moved so much closer to college that to bash a guy for playing in a quote-unquote college scheme, you'd have to be really off the reservation from a college scheme perspective.
Oh, I know.
To not translate to the NFL. So Fletcher here, more gap aligned.
Yep.
I'd call it there. And we got another 3-point stance with our hand down. 2nd and 7.
One thing I want to pay attention to is how consistent Zack's stance is. I mean, every single play, and really this entire line, but every single play, his stance looks the same. His posture is the same. And again, remember, he's playing with a back injury here. So it could have been easy for him to try to tweak and alter how he lined up and, really how he got set. But I'm sure, Zack being the elite player that he is, he understood the importance of being able to get into that same stance every darn time to have success against a dynamic player.
So let's just bring this back. I got to hear you talk about his hands through this rep.
Yep. Violent hands right here. So if you let it keep playing, Zack is a great guy, does a great job of switching up his hands, whether he plays independent, whether he plays like a little high-low. Here you see a 2-hand strike, leverage, it gets right underneath him. He's able to actually lock it up. And then at that point, after he has his hands inside, you'll see him right here, just squares Fletch back up and really, again, does a great job of ending the fight.
Yeah, there's no edge to get to on that one. He's got his hips back down. Fletcher's completely up and down.
I think another thing we need to pay attention to is look where the rest of the D-line is pushing to up the field, and then look where Zack is really stopping Fletch.
Yeah. Yeah, that creates that space for Dak to execute.
And look at that right there. That's just hands, angles, a whole 9 yards. I don't think Fletch has run a rep yet.
No, he hasn't. Again, as a D-line guy, I'm very disappointed so far.
A guy like that, though, it's just a matter of time before he gets one.
So we got a 2nd and 13 here. We're going to see a little game from Philly.
Yep, you see another game here. And when we get it to the back angle, This is going to be a good angle so you can kind of see. Look how wide Fletch is right here. Okay. He's almost like in a tilt wide, tip to tip 3. So again, that goes back to when he's going to play any type of jet tech, he's a little tighter on Zack. That way he can work an edge. But here, this gives him a great angle to go ahead and run it. As this clip develops, he works right in for TE.
So again, we're going to get that penetration. They're trying to bring that loop behind for everybody at home.
Yeah. You see they're both on the same level. Zack snaps it outside. You see him as he takes that inside hand and then takes the outside hand, or he takes the outside hand and posts and then takes that inside hand and really shoves the hit. That way he shoves, Fletch out and snaps him to Lyle. And then that puts him, look at his footwork. He's in a bad position here, but his footwork just is able to really make it up. And this is like kind of the difference between just your good and then your great players. Looks like he's in a bad position, but then his recovery, this is part of recovery and having feet, he's able to get right back in line and really knock off the TE.
That's an incredible amount of ground to gain just pushing off that right foot like that. I mean, his left foot's not doing a ton for him back here.
Nope.
And he's able to get all the way back across there.
The really good players do a great job of being in bad positions and recovering. And I think it's important to realize that those guys are kind of outliers in that regard, that if an average player ends up in a bad position, bad things are probably going to happen.
So we got a 2nd and 9 here. Dallas has been adding to their league. And again, this is week 6 against Philly. We're going to do both games of the Eagles against the Cowboys.
I believe this is October 20th, week 6. I was at this game.
So here we go. Now we got your alignment.
Yep.
So talk to me again. You mentioned briefly before it changes some things. What kind of things are you thinking here if you're Zack Martin looking at Fletcher in that 2-eye?
So depending on the protection, you can be a little more aggressive working into him if you've got that center's help based upon whatever the protection is. But if not, really this turns into an island that if you go too far, that he can get back to your outside shoulder. That if you're too shallow, he can then pick your inside shoulder. So it really leaves you as an offensive lineman in a compromising position. So you've got to be really definitive with your footwork and then also your hands. In a situation like this, he could probably play a little more aggressive, get hands on now, shoe set, or something that's really quick and intermediate because Fletch is really heavy on him in a 2-eye.
So let's see how this one plays out. We'll watch the center here again to see how much help he gets. So
drag, and then again, Zack just takes a full set and then goes hands on right now. But you can see the difference. You see all he does is really shoe set on him. That means picks him up, put him down right in place. That's just to square him back up. And the hands on there, and then you fight.
And right here, this is the piece. It's right arm. We're going to watch him work to reset that. Him and Fletcher matching. And now he gets his left arm back underneath.
Reworks. I think it's important to see this as well. This is as much as we've seen, and I hate using this word because it's not really a struggle. It's poetry in motion. But this is about as much as we've seen Zack get pushed back against Fletch so far. And really the reason being is the angle in which and the problems that 2-eye causes. And so you kind of see Zack, it really has to work like hell to re-leverage the outside hand and the inside hand. And so the feet are going to become key to be able to end this fight at the end.
So, yeah, he ends up losing about 5 yards on this one by the time he's able to get both those hands back in.
But again, does a great job of not letting Fletch impact the play.
And Travis comes over at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an incredible difference when you've got that player head up on you to get yourself in position there.
It is something we talk about all the time in training. College coaches have questions. A lot of pro consults in terms of coaching and players, we talk about it back and forth, just kind of sharing best practices. And then even based upon what player you're playing against that is running that 2-eye, some things change too. So it's really interesting. Again, I can't overstate enough that this is just a really great matchup to highlight.
And so we got the second quarter here. We're coming on a 2-minute drill for Dallas. They're carrying the lead, but obviously want to put more points up before halftime. So what does that change in terms of communication? Is that when you go to those hurry-up scenarios?
Yeah, communication's got to be at an all-time high. You kind of get the play, and sometimes they'll give you 2 plays. That way you're on the ball and running it depending on what happens. But really, there's a really innate sense of urgency when you get into that 2-minute drill. A lot of guys say that one of the biggest things that they feel is important in the 2-minute drill, especially when they know they're going to be in an obvious pass situation, is that they need to get in their stance, and then they said their initial set and getting hands on most of the time, because that ball's going to come out quick unless they're looking to take a shot when it's on the back end of a 2-minute drill and they're running out of downs where they know they've got to hold up a pass protection. So it's interesting here to see it's 1st and 10, 2-minute situation. He's getting that 2-eye here. It looks like everybody's pretty much going to be accounted for in this even look. So go ahead and roll it. Zack gets a little drag hand help from Travis. Really, more or less, it's just body presence. It allows Zack to be a little more aggressive inside to open that up. And this is a great job of being a little more sturdier on that 2-eye versus the last rep.
Absolutely. He got his hands in there from the start. He didn't have to reset each one independently.
Well, I'll tell you what, Travis dragging right there, believe it or not, something that small does wonders just for being a little more aggressive on that inside eye.
And obviously that protection was very helpful to Dak as I ate up some yards there. So this same drive, it's 2nd and 8 here. Again, we're still in this pressure situation of being in the 2-minute drill. Obviously, from a defensive perspective, this is when you're getting all your defensive linemen, your pressure packages juiced up and ready to go. We got to get off the field.
Same thing here. Kind of get that G look. Not so much a 2-eye here. A little more heavier. But, again, the principle stays the same. You see the drag, and then you see Zack just taking a nice short set, kind of gets pushed back a little bit there. But it's important against these 2-eyes that you see Zack is not creating space off the line of scrimmage traditionally. Everything he does is quick and shoe setting, and it's either going to be in place or reset his feet. That way he can always be in that base where it turns into really a fight. And I hate saying that because it's more of in other pass down a distance situation, it's more of a coordinated dance, so to speak, that in turns physical, especially in a chess match type situation where, Fletch will be in a 3 technique and Zack will need to create space off the line. But when this guy is so far up on Zack, it's just feet are so efficient, hands go on right now, and it's a fight.
Yeah, those first 2 in the ground right there, to your point. He doesn't lose any ground. You're talking about not creating any space. He doesn't lose any ground, doesn't give Fletcher an inch. He's ready to meet him right now.
His hands are on right now. See high, low hand there. His inside hand goes to like underneath the sternum. His outside hand goes and clips to the top. And then he does a great job of late reworking that hand. You see right there at the end, if you look right there at the end, you see the high hand, low hand, and then watch that outside hand right at the end. Boom, right there. And that just gives him enough leverage right there where Fletch can't shed his block or even get his hands up, for that matter, to make an impact on the play.
How comfortable do you have to be with your strength and your technique to take a hand off a player and look to refit it while engaged?
Some guys don't feel comfortable. Some guys just can't do it. And, I mean, it is what it is. But, again, we're talking about an elite player here. You've got to trust. It really boils down to technique and then, of course, have the proper level of strength needed to be able to create leverage with hand. And then just really, I think it's more of a feel and it's more of a reaction, resetting those hands and not putting yourself in a bad situation to be out over your toes, or to when you disengage that he's able to pull you and get off your block.
That makes sense. So a little tighter alignment here. Fletcher's on the outside shoulder again.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to say on the tighter alignment right there, a lot of times tighter alignment, you kind of expect, all right, either this guy's going to play right through me or try to go inside and cross my face. So depending on what the protection is, depending on who you're working to, you see there's a lot of bodies out here. So it looks like they point it. So Zack could probably push past that. Travis will get that, and Zack will have the next most dangerous man based upon the point.
Which is exactly what that ends up being, is they reduce.
Yep.
Dallas is ready for that, coming right over the top. So talk about this when you want to talk about a moving target. So now this guy is coming in and moving up, and Zack's got to gain width on this. What's some of the difficulties of trying to get out to that moving target?
Just gauging it. I think it turns into you being able to create space off that line of scrimmage. There's nothing really to set half man to, but it's just understanding that now I've got a little more space. This look is a little different because they're releasing it into a screen, which the viewers at home probably are going to, after it develops it, they're going, okay, that's why it's normally a pop and go. But had that not be a screen, Zack probably would have took that with a little more depth. That way he can run that guy up the field. But he knew all he needed to do is keep his angle, shove him, and then he needed to get out into the flat for the screen.
So again, you're saying he would have set back for more depth and rode this thing over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he bumps him off, and now he's out in front.
Yep.
The difficulties of finding a moving target. Good job by Geary here to just split that.
Yeah, that's really difficult right there. As you see, Zack is looking to lead up. I think that ball, if that ball is a little bit on Zeke could probably turn that up the field or stick his foot in the ground a little quicker. And then that guy that's trailing on Zack's hip probably doesn't have a shot at that play at all. But because the ball was a little longer coming out and Zeke had to reach around for it, like Zack there's no chance he's making that block.
Yeah, he didn't even get his eyes around until Nate was already behind him.
Yeah, there's no chance. If he makes that block, that's adding to the legend of.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. All right, so Dallas is up by 20 here, 1st and 10, beginning of the third quarter. Now we're starting to get some desperation times for Philly. They've got to get the ball back.
Yep.
I think we're going to see another example here. I think we have another tighter alignment by Fletcher.
A little wider on the 3 than normal. So you know at this point that he's probably going to work up your shoulder, through your chest, and maybe late try to cross your face, but he's not going to cross your face right off the snap. It's just like a hot contained look. You see everybody on the D-line is kind of working over, try to stay in their lanes. Not much action there between Fletch and Zack.
I think what's interesting to me on a rep like this is the ability for the offensive player in this scenario to get kind of mentally unfocused, feel really comfortable. We've got the 2-on-1. It's fine. We're washing them. Maybe relax a little bit with that hand. And this play keeps going. And because Dak's still holding the ball, Zack has to really fit and engage here.
Yep.
Towards the end of this thing, because the other players are getting pressure back there. The ball's
Absolutely. That's not a good situation to be left in.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, 1st and 20, another not good situation offensively here. Here's our 2-eye.
Yep. So you see the independent feet, independent hands, inside, outside, with the feet and the hands, and then fights. Notice he's keeping that base. Really good leverage right there with the hand, stands him straight up, literally redirects that force straight up. Look at the connection between Zack's elbows and his hips and getting extension. Now, at that point, he's climbing them. That's really great job of creating leverage and then redirected Fletcher's force right back up through him. He can't go anywhere. There's nothing pushing the pocket there.
This is not going to be my tape for a defensive lineman. All right, we're getting our butts kicked on the defense side because you're right. I mean, the angles are ridiculous here. Zach's got all these angles. Fletcher is straight up and down. And it looked like – was this that high hand, low hand again? Did you get that left hand inside?
Yep.
So that left hand's in. This right arm's around grabbing that shoulder. My goodness, that's a win for Zack. So 2nd and 8 here in the fourth quarter. Dallas still carrying that 20-point lead.
Now, this is one of my favorite plays right here of this game. I remember watching this live, and I think I actually may have this live on my phone. But Fletcher gets a tremendous jump off the ball and gets into Zack immediately. And Zack does not panic. Watch as this plays. I think this is the play I remember, but watch Fletcher's jump off the ball right here.
Ooh. Yeah, you're not kidding.
Zack doesn't panic at all.
So we do that thing, that Teach Tape Tuesday. Would you nominate this for Teach Tape Tuesday?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so again, this isn't a set. Zack is aggressive setting against Fletcher here, and he understands that he's going to try to play through his chest, and so he doesn't have to give him much space. So at this point, again, Fletcher takes a tremendous jump off the ball, and Zack right there, he's trying to rework his hands, and as soon as he reworks those hands right here, watch the hips.
Right back
Boom.
down.
And then he's just got to lift.
Got those feet.
And it's over right there. Right there.
Oh, that's not the picture I want to see, Duke. You're killing me. That is pretty. That is pretty.
It's fun because, listen, we could talk about the end result of all these plays so far. Zack went it, but Fletcher Cox is doing some impressive stuff. So that's the thing here. Is as impressive as the jumps and the alignments and the hands and the power that Fletcher's been playing with throughout all these clips. Zack has done a phenomenal job of really what it's boiled down to is Zack has done a great job recovering every time.
Yeah. No, I was just going to point out this is the first rep we've really seen Zack this tall at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Fletcher really got on that outside shoulder and pressed him up, but this ability to refit and drop and re-leverage, to use your terminology, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't overstate enough that what we're seeing is elite ability to recover.
So we're going to move this thing over to week 16 here. Dallas clearly came away with the win.
Really good reps in this one.
We're going to get more of our 2-eye right now. This is actually a better angle here to see that left hand on the breastplate. So again, guys at home, here's our matchup. You see that left hand get right inside Fletcher's pads, right off the snap. And Fletcher barely leaves the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, there's a play that's going to be coming up in 2 or 3 plays here that, again, it was much like the other play I said is my favorite play. Fletch gets just a tremendous jump, gets into Zack, but then Zack's recovery and his ability to re-leverage and rework his hands really make all the difference in the world. It ends up in a flat back knockdown for Zack. That's pretty, man. Look at that. Look at the feet. Independent feet, independent hands.
Stays low, stays on it.
Yep. And again, this 2-eye is not easy to deal with.
So another 1st and 10 play. Philly's actually got the lead. Dallas is trying to make up the ground here. We're going to see Zack out in space.
Yep. Kind of same situation as the last screen we saw from the week 6 matchup. Ball was just a little behind, and it threw off the timing of a big gain.
Talk about the difficulties of this when you're trying it, because Travis has to take this over. That's a a long way to go with Fletcher being out there in that 2-eye. So talk to me a little bit about Zack here trying to help Travis take this over.
Yeah, well, if you run the tape, you'll see all Zack does is he doesn't go anywhere. So watch. He understands that Travis has to get there. And so look at that. So that almost looks like a soft combo fit, as if, you had an ace or something like that, or an A block or anything like that, where he just gives him the shoulder and just allows Travis to get enough. That way Fletch doesn't impact or pressure the play.
And then we're going to see him out in the move here, and moving well.
Yep.
Wide receiver ends up hunting out that one. He's looking back for more threats, but ball's already out of bounds. Yeah, this is like a clinic so far.
Not many bad reps, huh?
Not many bad reps.
But again, it's not just all domination. It's Zack's ability to recover, which is all that makes all the difference in the world. Elite recovery, elite hand usage, being able to rework the hands.
And I've been noticing how square he stays. You kept talking about getting himself back to a square position. Fletcher doesn't have an edge to work because of how
what it is. Square. Zack's got those big, broad shoulders, and he never plays small within that. He's always making sure that his hips, feet, and shoulders are square to the line of scrimmage. And again, everything that we've talked about with Zack so far, again, like his physical traits and things are out of this world. But critical factors to the position when we talk about ground up fundamentals and feet, it all starts with that stance, which we highlighted in week 6. And then the feet are so efficient. The power angles that he's playing with, the knee bend, and then the hips, and then the shoulder stand square, and of course, hands.
So the reason I wanted to throw this one in is I wanted to talk to you about eyes while engaged.
Yep.
Because it looked to me like he's got to be aware of and ultimately responsible for 47 if he ended up being the B-gap runner here. Yep. So just want to talk about, fitting this, but still trying to have presence in that gap.
Correct. So you'll see here, Zack still tries to work with his outside shoulder free, so to speak. So he doesn't get it buried all the way in or rework underneath. It's still clamped to the outside. You see they looks like they actually have a big dual double read type look. You see Travis's eyes are here on 57. Zack's eyes are there. So at that point, they know that only one would be able to come. And so that would be communication. So if, say, 47 came, Zack would then shove or, say I'm leaving, whatever their call is, and be able to pick off 47 who's coming in. If it's 57 that decided to duel or whoever they're working to, I don't know if it's 57 or I think it's 57 that they will probably be working to. And then Zeke would be responsible for outside defender. But again, it would just be a communication and probably a feel and a shove to get these guys to where they need to go.
And this is the thing that's always fascinating me about a position like offensive line is we try to do this thing where we pare it down to a player, but ultimately this is a unit.
Yeah.
Working in concert.
It's definitely a unit. And again, what makes offensive line so special is that at the end of the day, we're 5 guys working for one goal. That's why we have protections. That's why we have scheme. That's why we have to be on the same page in terms of communication. That's why we have to be on the same levels in terms of passing off stunts. 5 guys working as one. And this is the play I was talking about here with Fletch. So again, you're going to see Fletch is lined up in that 2-eye and gets another tremendous jump. And again, Zack's just his feet, his hands, his base, and his ability to recover after Fletch has a tremendous jump. You see he takes that outside hand and really tries to pry Zack open. Zack's not going for it. There, you see the hand, high hand, low hand, never changes his body position. And then watch how he just re-leverages the hips as he reworks the hands and then just torques him and throws him out the club. And, of course, I will say this, Fletch did trip. But, again, that's just an excellent job recovering from Zack because that could have been a bad situation with the jump that Fletch got and then how violent he was using that outside hand.
To your point, again, this left hand, this is how we would teach it from a defense.
Oh, yeah, he opens them right up.
He gets this, and you just talk about how broad shoulder he played. He doesn't play small. Fletcher starts to turn him, starts to get that angle we've finally been talking about. And then Zach, to your point, sinks in there again. And now he's actually driving Fletcher out of the way before the trip. But certainly the trip helps.
That's important context too. Like I pointed out, I'm always going to be fair and point out if a D lineman trips or not. But Zack had already recovered and ended the fight before the trip, because as you highlight right here, he's in control.
This thing's moving away from Dak.
Yeah. There's nothing left there. And I'm glad we got to that. That was the one play I wanted to make sure we got to.
Yeah, there's been some excellent stuff from Fletcher. Again, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. He's bringing.
Oh, man, he is. And again, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago and what do we want to highlight, there was 2 matchups I talked about, and it just wasn't enough sample base for the first one, which was Yanda going one-on-one with Geno Atkins. And so the next one we brought up was Zack and Fletch, because I knew I wanted to talk 2-eye. I want to talk, 2 elite players and what both of them would bring and who gets the best of who. But again, I'm going to say it again. Fletch is showing some tremendous things that would cause havoc and despair for a lot of offensive linemen in the league. And again, Zach's ability to recover and just really keep his cool and trust his technique has made all the difference in these clips that we've been highlighting, breaking down.
I'm now going to go pull like a 20-play sample of Fletch and these same techniques, just mauling other guys using the same stuff.
Yeah.
That he's just not getting done here, because he gets it done in other places. Zach's just a hell of a competitor for him.
Yeah,
So I wanted to highlight Malcolm being up here. You got another player right here in the B gap. What's the thought here now with this 2-eye and another player crouching up?
So those guys become a part of your count in terms of pointing. And based upon what they see on film and the protection, you got a really good idea of what's coming next in terms of who's dropping or not, based upon what the formation is. So it's just being alert, being able to communicate, being able to understand who you're working to and who's responsible for who. You got 3 down here, essentially. So you know that the back is there to kind of have your back. So he's going to be one-on-one with Fletch. Another good job there. See, he didn't shoe set there. He was a little more aggressive with that inside foot, being able to cover up. But really what that did is allowed him to get back to being square. He knew that he didn't really have much help. Travis was going to drag just a little bit and more or less provide body presence more than anything. So that's all Zack really needed to square him back up.
This is a heck of a right hand by Fletcher to come back inside on this thing.
Yeah, that right hand and him clearing that right hand is really nice. So that separation right there typically would be the end for most guys. And then you'll see Zack all of a sudden, just that inside hand underneath the armpit just gave him just enough where, nope, nowhere.
Recovery. If we had to put one word to wrap up, or not wrap up, but put a bow on what we've been seeing in this one, I'm going with recovery.
Yep. We've said it over and over again, and I think that's a key trait, the ability to recover.
So this is one I just wanted to get more of a mental perspective. He doesn't have a ton he has to do physically here, but just when you have these kind of players walking up and some of the difficulties when you start talking about let me just bring you to the point we've talked about before, which is, oh, well, I don't know if he's a tackle, we'll just move him to guard and everything will be hunky-dory type deal. Some of the mental strain when you have to play inside like this. So now Fletcher's down on the 0 here. You got 53 and 27 as potential threats. How much more challenging is it for an interior player reading all that than just being able to read your immediate threat as a tackle?
Yeah, well, again, it goes back to film study. It goes back to understanding what they're doing and then how they point these guys. Just knowing who you're responsible for, saying, all right, so for instance, when we highlight this, as soon as Jenkins settles here, we've got 4 guys, right? And we got 4 guys really that can block. So we've got 4 guys. So really, you still got numbers. Now it's just sorting really to understand who's going to get who. So clearly, Fletch is head up on Travis. He's going to be accounted for. Okay. Now you got 3 over here in Zack Lyle, and Zeke to block 3. Okay, that turns into MDM. You typically don't want to end on a back, but then as we let it roll,
So Zach's going to hunt 53 until he departs and then go help.
correct. They knew somebody was dropping. It's just a matter of who was going to drop and when.
And so does Zach need to have eyes on this when you see Zeke departing? Like, does Zach need most likely have eyes all the way to 27 or probably just on 53?
You know what? I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Because I just saw it looked like he just hung on an extra beat after 53 retreated just in case Malcolm came.
Yeah,
so wasn't quite sure.
It could have been a double read, 53 to 27. I'm not sure, though.
And those are things we talk about a lot when we do our class on. Sometimes you just got to bring questions to other people. The film just brings you a question.
Mm-hmm.
You can go around and try to dig out what was happening there. So we got a second. We're winding down the second quarter again in this game. Tighter game. Phillies up 10-3. 11 seconds left. Trying to get that equalizing score here before half. So talk to me a little bit about what Zach's doing with his left hand here in signaling.
Yeah, so that's part of their cadence silent count. You've seen guys with the head knob or whatever. So it could be that they said, hey, 3 seconds after the hand moves or a half second after the hand move, we're going to snap the ball. So that's part of the cadence.
So he's responsible for helping out the team there.
Yep. You see it look like they tried to get some type of inside NT twist. Kind of got voided.
Really great job taking care of that.
Yep. They just ran the TT right into each other.
Talk to me about Travis's depth here in the middle. I mean, should almost look like he's backpedaling.
Yeah, there's a few guys that do this. Travis Frederick does it. Sometimes you'll see Rodney Hudson do it. It really just depends, I think, on the player, but they want to get back into proper position and stay on the same level. So they don't really take a set to that side unless somebody's on them, especially if they feel like that there may be something junky, a game or something late developing, that they're just going to back up and kind of have eyes and scan on everything.
Yeah, I mean, they got to a really clean level there, and this TT's not going anywhere.
Nope.
All right, so that'll end that second quarter there. Moving into the third, Dallas ends up putting the field goal up. So their next drive out. We're going to get back to Zack on Fletcher. He's got to put that cadence or the signal to the cadence there.
Yep, so he's in that 3. Notice how tight he is. And you can see Fletch right there leaning. There's no secret right there. You see how he shifts, hip shifts? You know he's coming inside right now.
Yeah, you just guys, if you watch this hip right there, as Duke just mentioned, watch that little bit of lean. That's that subtle stuff. And you talk about doing that advanced scouting that you're doing for your guys. Those
right
subtle things, that little bit of lean right there, and Zack should know that thing's coming across your face.
Yeah, it's the small things, though, that people don't see. And, again, you see another TT stunt they tried to run, and it's just in great situation. Xavier Suafilo does a nice job really mirroring, and then everything was able to shove back off. You'll see Travis watch how Fletch tries to play through him, and then Travis shoves him back to the outside. That little settle stuff is real nice. And then Zack is on the island of his own. This is a really clean pocket right here, too. Even when you look at what Smitty is doing at left tackle, Lyell's guy dropped and left.
Yeah, this is a pretty clean look for Dak there.
Yep.
That redirect ability that Martin has, we've seen it a few times from some bad positions. This was a little better position for him to do it from, but still, that ability to redirect, you mentioned the term before, the difference between, or the phrase between good and great. of all the different things, is that what that redirect ability up there? Or what other things would you put into that can make the difference between good and great?
Well, really, I think it's a couple. Yes, the ability to redirect and to recover, of course, good to great. But really, I think it's the mental processing piece that we like to talk about. Like the mental processing piece allows for elite level play speed. So I think that's what you see with Zack. Zack is a different level of thinker, and so he's processing these things way quicker than anybody else, which allows him to play fast and always be in position as well.
Again, doesn't gain much ground, plays flat.
Yeah, this is more of a play action look, so they're going to be a little more aggressive in their protection, as you can see. Nobody's really retreating.
He's done such a good job with that initial point of contact. It takes a good rush from these guys to get him into a position to have to recover.
Yeah, which is crazy because then even when you get him in that position, it's still no dice a lot of time.
Oh, there's another inside crossface here from Fletcher, at least with that right hand. We'll see this thing in just a second. So definitely a different alignment from Fletcher here.
Yeah, so that wasn't something where he had planned on coming inside. He just tried to take what Zack presented to him. Zack takes a great set of creating space, gets half man, and then Fletch tries to pick him with that hand. And then, again, just Zack's recovery.
That's unreal.
That's unreal, man. I mean,
that's unfair is what it is because Fletcher should have owned him. I mean,
that's a sack and strip sack against anybody else.
No, there's no doubt. That's great timing by Fletch. Strong right hand. He should have owned that. And Zack gets his entire body and head all the way back into position and sinks his hips. Come on now, man. That's not fair. You can't be bringing this kind of stuff to the table.
I'm going to call Zack after this. And
tell him he's getting a little love, clearly, and well-deserved.
That's pretty. And then he puts him in the ground.
All right, this has not been my favorite tape. All right, next time we do this, we're doing the D-line one. All right?
I'm gonna be sick that day.
Oh, goodness. All right, so Fletcher's in here on Zack. I wanted to get a couple of reps if somebody drops out. Again, this goes to the mental piece. When you get a different body type in there, so in this case, he's got, I think, Brandon Graham in here at this 3 technique over him. So maybe it doesn't change much for Zack, but talk to me about other linemen when you start to see a player with that edge rusher skill set coming inside.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that we talk about is when you start to see those guys coming in sub packages is to understand that they always want to try to beat you at speed and then get to their counter. So just kind of having an idea of what they like to do goes a long ways, and then not panic. I think a lot of times what these guys end up doing is they'll try to really attack what the offensive lineman gives to them. So what we try to do is not present them anything that they can exploit or take advantage of.
Makes sense. In this case, they're bringing him all the way back across. A little 3-man game here.
Yeah, so you see with the 3-man game, they've got Sweat on the outside versus Lael, and then they go Brandon Graham does like a little kick stutter, and then really what ends up happening is Fletch comes right back around, tries to cross face, and then they send the other end to the inside, and then Brandon Graham's working all the way back around as almost like a hot contain. So really interesting look.
And I got to say, it's got to feel pretty good to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for many reasons. But when you have this kind of action, where they're going to completely wall off this 3-man game, Travis is gaining depth again. Seems like he's ready to pick up any leakage. Tyron's not going to let Brandon do anything over on that side. You're going to feel good at night.
I think another thing we need to really pay attention to as well is that we've seen 2 different left guards in these 2 games, Xavier Suafilo and Connor Williams, and both of them have more than held their own when needed to in both of these situations against these dynamic Philly defensive fronts.
Yeah, this is not a slouch front from Philly by any stretch of the imagination. And we've only seen a little bit of pressure so far in this particular cut up. Really well done. Really well done there. So we're moving into the fourth quarter of this game, coming down the home stretch here. Oh, we're going to see some recovery here.
Just a little bit.
All right, again, this is not fair. Fletcher's right hand is ridiculous. This should have ended everybody. And how does he pop back up?
So one of the things I've really started to study in situations like this is not only are the feet in the ground, the hands, the body control, and the posture, but just the ability to get strong and be strong through the core and, not really getting anti-rotated or rotated around, just really keeping everything right in front of them. So you got to believe that Zack Martin, in terms of functional strength and, core strength, is probably as strong as they come.
We can agree Fletcher Cox, strong guy, right? You and me on the same page on that one?
Yeah.
Zack ends up with his left foot off the ground with that club, and with just his right foot in the ground while engaged with Fletcher, gets himself back into position. I mean, seriously?
Unreal.
Fletcher went back after this one and said, "Coach, I don't know what else you want me to do. What else am I supposed to do? I hit the club." He popped right back up.
Yeah.
It's like that old punching bag. Put the sand in the bottom of it.
It popped right back up.
Right back up. What are you going to do to him? All right, 3rd and 1. Philly's still carrying 11-point lead here, fourth quarter. I want to get a little bit more from you about these kind of pass protections, these rollout scenarios when you got to be executing while on the move.
Yeah. So depending on how these are coached, a lot of times what teams try to do is what coaches try to do is give you aiming points or you're trying to get to his outside shoulder. And then you'll notice like the backside is a little different. You'll see backside, they'll take like a square shuffle and then like one back pedal, or a square shuffle, hinge, just really depends on, what the protection is or what the nuance of it is. But it's not easy, because if that play gets extended anymore, or Dak has to go to the sideline, like it puts the offensive lineman in a vulnerable position, because you can't block that guy on the run out there. At that point, you got Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham full on sprinting to your quarterback. So it's up to the quarterback when he's on that roll or sprint out type protection to get the ball out.
Oh, absolutely.
They're moving the point for a reason at that point.
Oh, it's an incredibly difficult thing, because from a defensive coaching perspective, there's a lot of things that we're going to want to do when we start to see those things. That's when you start to see teams start to backdoor those.
Yep.
And slingshot around and everything of the sort.
Yep. All
right, so again, he's going to look to chuck Fletcher by and get out here. So talk to us like coaching these things up. How difficult are these things, and timing-wise, to know just how far to work a guy before you release and go for who you're really supposed to block?
Well, this really depends, especially with this 2-eye. Like the 2-eye, you can't afford to step all the way inside, or else you're going to be off track. So you'll see Zack really doesn't go anywhere. He just kind of punches him out, lets Fletch do whatever the hell he's going to do, and then gets out and gets back on track. If you got a guy coming from space, you're not going to wait for him. You're going to kind of flash and go. If you got a guy head up on you, you got to kind of engage him and then throw him by out of the lane and out of the path. So the timing of these and the spacing of these screens become very important from an execution standpoint.
And then here, when you talk about MDM before, I don't know if we really define that for people, most dangerous man. I almost got the sense here that he's hunting up Malcolm, but then he feels Nate coming in here and realizes he's got to work that too.
Correct.
Hard to block two at the same time in the open field. So again here, fourth quarter, same drive. going to see Fletcher pushing on that B-gap shoulder.
Just impressive stuff right here. Nothing. So Zack takes a great set here, is able to create space. You see that more of at an angle, keeps half man positioning, gets his hands engaged, and then is going to be able to rework his hands and then lock it out. And then look at the angle there, elbows to hips, lower extremities all in line, right. Right there.
Nothing's over.
Textbook.
He seems to have a really good feel of when Fletcher takes these wide tracks, whether it's that TEs we saw before, or this one, just kind of departure angle, about bumping them off and just say, if screw it, you want to go wide, I'll bump you wider.
Well, yeah, so we could talk about that too. It's really hard to describe, but Fletcher's stance is different from when he's going to run like that TE, or if he's just going to, like, he's still, like, if you go back, he still is balanced and has weight forward. So you know he's going to try to play through Zack. Now, when he's going to run anything outside, he's going to be a little wider. Stance is actually going to be just a touch more narrow. That hand, if you can see his hand that's down, it's typically not that wide when he's going to move. It's more inside of him. That way he could pick it up and work to the outside. So though it looks like the same stance, it's slightly different. And then also if he's working to the outside, if you see how he's more at an angle of Zack, when he's working toward the outside, I've noticed that he's going to be angled more to the inside gap between the tackle and the guard, or even that inside tip of the shoulder pad of the tackle when he's looking to move outside.
Gotcha. So he takes us outside. Zack bumps him off and locks him out. Good night.
And then same thing when he's going inside. Like you can tell when he's going inside because that stance isn't balanced. It becomes really, really narrow. And then his hip leans towards the inside. And he's tighter.
So here's another one with that immediate contact here against that 2-eye.
Yep, shoe set, hands on right now, fight.
And again, excellent job refitting. I want people to walk away from this understanding just how strong Fletcher is and what this is taking Zack to do to slow him down. I'm going to put together ones where Fletcher just walks over other guys because this is not normal to see him stood up this frequently.
And again, look at the hands, though. Rework, 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 rework.
You see it here with this right hand. It's going to come inside and gets back to those angles. He finishes in such good position.
This is just textbook stuff, man. What I like about Zack is that, yes, the ability to recover is out of this world. You know, who he is in terms of a player, yes, great player. But there's still a lot of things that you can teach from Zack Martin that will translate to other people's game. There's some guys who are really good where you're like, man, that was phenomenal. I can't do that, you know? So there's still a lot of pieces that Zack Martin implements in his game. So if you go back here, you kind of see now, look at the angle that Fletcher's on now. You see that hand, and that he's more in the gap and on that inside shoulder of the tackle versus angle. So those small things are like what I notice all the time when he's trying to work outside for a game. It's real small, but it's there.
I just like how he's loading up that right leg as he's making contact.
Yep, he's going to snap it outside, and then he's going to get that left foot right back in the ground.
So everything he does syncs up. So boom, he can pop right back across.
And look at him. He goes right back to being square.
Again, this is another teach tape right here. Last couple plays here. Again, winding down in the fourth quarter under 4 minutes to go. Dallas got an 8-point deficit they're trying to make up here. Philly's just trying to come out with the W. So we're going to see Fletcher work this back inside.
Yep, to no avail. I think he's going to get a handful of Zack and Travis on this.
Another lean here. I don't know if you guys can see this little bit. I'll try to bring it back slow. Just watch him start to fade this way.
So again, yeah.
And Zach's just waiting on it. Again, he doesn't. You can tell, to your point, he's done that homework
Because
because
he won't fly out there in his set, if you notice that.
yeah, that was exactly what I was going to ask you about. Is this the last time he gained ground immediately because he was expecting the width? This time he doesn't gain ground because he knows what's coming. You talked about the mental part being good to great. It's showing up every rep. So after that big gain here, 2nd and 10. And again, just staying engaged here.
You see that lane to the inside. He's crossing face. It's like clockwork.
He's so ready for it. And then we talk a little bit about mental toughness. And a lot of it sometimes has to do with staying mentally engaged.
Yep.
You got a guy here, 8 points down, staying engaged because he's feeling that lean and making it look easy.
Being in the moment within the moment. There's nothing bigger at that time.
Love it. So 1st and 10. Fletcher coming with one last push here.
Just rushes him right down the middle. Zack will gladly welcome that.
So this is a little different from both guys in terms of the initial contact point. A little further in there. So how much more difficult is it when you're essentially, retreating, so to speak, in that set, catching a power rusher like this?
Well, you notice right here that Fletch didn't tip that he was going to go to the inside. So Zack started to take his initial set, and then he reset his foot right there, and this redirects, and then gets right back in front of him. So this right here, Fletch is running right down the middle, and Fletch is a powerful guy with strong hands. So now Zack knows that he's got to do any and everything he can to get those hands inside, get his base re-leveraged, and then to try to stand it up so that way he doesn't push the pocket any further. He doesn't. This is probably about the deepest Fletch has gotten in the last 2 games on any pressure.
Yeah. To your point, just those little things about, again, him taking this initial set, but then squaring back up. And then, again, you're in that battle. So I think this is our last play here.
There's not much there. Zack takes a good aggressive set, gets his hands on. Fletch had no want to. But here's a new alignment. He's in a tilt shade. And again, that's a great jump by Fletch, and then violent hands too. Look at the hands by Fletcher.
Punch right through there with that right hand.
Yep, and then watch the left hand. Try to get extension. He's pushing the pocket here.
Yeah. He's got that strength to him. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So, I mean, what's not to say? What's not to say after watching that?
Man, that was so fun. Again, just 2 elite level players at their position going on a heavyweight fight, so to speak. That 2-eye really dictated a lot of that heavyweight fight because the action's right there. There's not much room for error. There wasn't a lot of space to play. I think we saw a lot of good components there of Zack Martin's ability to recover. And though he was in some bad positions, he never stayed in a bad position. That body posturing and positioning always got back to feet in the ground, hips square, playing with power angles, elbows, hands in tight, finishing the fight. All right. No matter if he had independent hands, no matter if he played inside hand, outside hand, high hand, low hand, whenever he reworked, it always ended up elbows connected to hips, re-leveraging that force up. Even some of the strong plays where you saw Fletch really try to pry open Zack with his left hand, Zack able to rework, clamp that arm down, and really end the fight. So, man, just there's so much there that we just covered in the last hour with the 40 plays that we took a look at. And again, I think it's important for our viewers to really understand and look at that Fletcher bought it. He came with some stuff that would cause fits for other people. But Zack, again, with just being the elite level offensive guard that he is, essentially had a counter and recovery for everything that was thrown at him.
There's no doubt. So well said. Well, I'm positive after watching this, people are going to want to learn a little bit more about you. So can you give people maybe what the last 2 to 3 years have looked like, and if you want to give some teases as to maybe what's next for people, or at least a little bit about where people can learn more about you?
Yeah, first I want to start off and say, Dan, thanks for having me. I think our relationship goes back now probably 6 years ago when we were doing some consults and stuff like that. So it's been really fun to see what you've built with the Scouting Academy and really making a difference, adding context to evaluations, and just I really appreciate what you guys do for the O-line and D-line positions. I think that was an area of opportunity that we looked at 6 years ago and said, all right, let's completely change the narrative of both of these positions, and let's do it through education and teaching. And I've been on a board with that ever since. That's always been my vision. My vision and my goal and my why is I didn't have everything in terms of what I needed to play professionally, but I was able to maximize every resource that I had at the college level, and then a brief stint in the Arena Football League, and then even my college coaching career, and then getting into the private sector and some of these consulting jobs. And there, along the way, there was a lot of people who didn't believe in me, didn't believe in what I was about and what I was doing. But then there was people that did. So those people that did, that gave me things, that gave me tools, that gave me tidbits for coaching and developing and things like that. That's kind of my why, to give back to the position. And so my whole goal and vision has been to provide and change the narrative surrounding offensive line evaluation, critique, development, and just to have these conversations and try to get people to understand that there's more to the position than just blocking the guy. That's the end result, but it's always about the process and attacking the process within it. So that's been really fun to build out O-line Masterminds to what it is now. And that's just really, we're the premier, professional development when it comes to offensive line play, from everything from training to, the mental performance piece, to film study, to the breakdowns, to just the elite level thinking in terms of all the guys that we have involved with us. We're growing. We're growing from not only from the pro standpoint, but from the attention that we're getting from a lot of the college programs, to even, trickle down to the grassroots in high school, which will be coming soon with some of the stuff we're doing. And then, of course, what we do with our combine prep program. So it's been really humbling to see. But at the end of the day, it's always about the position, always about the guys in the arena. Those are the guys that count. It's not me. I learn so much more from the guys than I can ever give them. I think what I do provide is kind of that go-between and mediator who would say, all right, well, this is how I've seen it from the playing experience that I've had, from the coaching experience that I had, from the evaluation experience. And then one thing what I do, one of the signs or one of the key things for elite level performers and even mastery is the aggregation of information. And so that's what I try to do. I know I don't have all the answers, but I know I'm willing to do whatever it takes to find them. So that's kind of what I try to do. That way I can give back to the position, whether I'm working with teams, whether I'm working with players, whether I'm working with coaches and scouts. Like I love doing that stuff. I love being on the ground and just really grinding it out.
So you do put a lot of educational content up on Instagram. So we want to make sure we put your Instagram handle up here. And so hopefully you guys go follow Duke, and you're going to learn a ton over there. But where else can they go to keep learning about you and maybe what you have coming up?
Yeah, so Twitter and Instagram right now are the best ways. I do have a Facebook page that pretty much there's some stuff that are exclusive to that page. I've kind of fell behind on updating that with everything that I have going on. There's some stuff that I always upload every now and then on YouTube. I will say that there's going to be some new cool things coming out pretty soon on the digital platform front. And I think we're going to be able to provide even more content right there in the palm of your hand that is going to really advance the position and raise the bar. Every year I talk about raising the bar with what we do with O-Line Mastermind 3-day seminar here in Frisco, Texas. And I think we're going to continue to do that. We're in uncharted territory with the landscape of what's going on in the world today, but we're planning for O-Line Masterminds as normal. And even if it has to be on the digital front, we will get it done. I think, and I'm having confidence and I'm having faith and I'm being optimistic that we're going to be able to open things back up and we're going to be able to provide the 3rd annual O-Line Mastermind, the ultimate professional development weekend for offensive line.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's an event that you've brought together NFL players, some college players, for them to exchange amongst each other ways to improve their game and raise offensive line play across the league. So kudos to you from that work. And we're going to make sure we share those links you mentioned in the description. So if anybody watching this can just click below and gain access to those things.
Love it, Dad. Awesome.
Well, again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring this to you. Excited to finally get into some offensive line with you. And thank you very much, Duke, for joining us. So you can find more about us, scoutingacademy.com. We're going to link our social pages below if you want to check us out there. We put up shorter things like teach tapes and things of that nature on our social channels, and we're excited to engage with you. Please leave comments if there's players you want us to tackle or positions you want us to tackle. And again, thank you so much for watching.